Hello again, everyone. This is Randy, your sewing machine man, and we're looking at a bunch of thread sitting on top of a Singer 221. And what we're going to do is discuss the big three: thread, threading, and needle. And 51 years in this business, I can tell you that almost every single malfunction that occurs on a sewing machine is going to have something to do with one of those three items. Now, there's a million things that can go wrong, but predominantly the things that my customers call me with, and they got issues with looping underneath, or it's jamming, or it's skipping, that's a daily occurrence. I probably talk to 2 or 3 people a day, sometimes as many as 10, because they're calling me because they know I serviced their machine. It was working fine, 3 weeks ago, 6 months ago, a year ago. And I sat down with them, and I was in their house. We go through the whole process. Here's how it works. Here's what everything's called. Here's what you do to make sure you don't get in trouble again, to keep you out of harm's way when it comes to malfunction. So I told them about the thread, the threading, and the needle, and it's very simple, but it's huge because everybody thinks it's some great big deal. Everybody thinks some great big thing happened. I think the timing's off. Oh, Lord, how many times do they call me and say, how much you charge to fix the timing on a whatever machine? Oh, what makes you think your timing is off? Well, it's jamming, it's looping, it's skipping stitches, it's doing this, it's breaking the thread. Oh, and that's timing? Yeah, that's what I think it is. Well, it's not. What do you think? Can you fix my tension? Because I think my tension's off. Really? Tension's off. What's it doing? It's breaking the thread. Well, tension's not going to cause that. There's a lot of things that'll cause that, but it won't be tension. Tension's simple. It's very easy. I'll show you. Threading and thread and needle. That's the big three. Start off with thread. Number 1. Customer says, I'm doing this, doing that, making loops. I always say, okay, A, what kind of thread are you using? What kind of thread? Not who made it. Now, what color is it? Not what kind of spool it's on. We'll get to that, but what kind of thread is it? And they say, 100% of the time, they say, oh, it's just regular thread. Oh, regular thread. Like at the gas station, you got low test, you got regular, and you got high test. Nope, that's not how it works with thread. With thread, there are at least 20 different sizes of thread. And sometimes they'll say, well, my friend just gave me a bag of thread, so I just reached in and grabbed one because I needed gold or black. So what did you look on the end of the spool to see what it said on the end of the spool? And they said, well, it fell off. I don't know what kind of thread it is. Well, for Pete's sake, if you don't know what kind of thread it is, it'd be like putting kerosene in your car. It's fuel. Or putting diesel in your car. It's fuel, but it's the wrong kind. It's very critical. It's critical that you use the right thread. You can absolutely jam a machine, lock it up like it's welded, break parts because you're using the wrong thread. How simple is it just to get the right thread? Well, it's pretty hard. It's pretty daggone hard because you have all these different options and only one is going to work perfectly. All these other ones are going to get you in trouble. So it's easy to get in trouble. So you grab one out of the stack and you go, well, here's one. What does it say on the end of it? Does it say all-purpose? Does it say all-purpose? I'm not a thread snob. That thread will work. It's dual duty, all-purpose thread. It's not going to be the Mettler. It's not going to be the this, and it's going to be the that, and it's not going to be the, the made in Sweden or made by the Vikings in the sunlight of the morning. No, I'm not a thread snob. Dual duty thread, all-purpose. All-purpose. That means it's not real thick. Now you can grab one that says dual duty, but doesn't say all-purpose. And what does it say? Top stitching and buttonhole twist. OMG. Are you kidding me? This is El Ropo. You could probably put an anchor on this and anchor your bass boat. This stuff is stout. This is thick. It's heavy. It will jam a little machine like this up like it's welded. It'll absolutely jam it up. You will not get it moving because the diameter of the thread is huge. And I have a video on the threads, what kind of threads to use. It's a whole different deal. And I use a micrometer to show you that the difference between the 0.05, 0.015, 0.07, all the different thread diameters that will absolutely destroy your machine. There's a buttonhole twist and top stitching. What else do we have over here? What's this? buttons, carpets, and crafts. It says dual duty, but it's for buttons, sewing on buttons, carpets, and craft. It's for absolute hand sewing. Again, real thick stuff. Of course, you can go over here and say, what is, so we did this one. Yeah, top stitching. Did buttons and crafts. What's this one? Just grab it out. I need brown. No, let's throw it on there. It's brown, right? Nope. What is it? Hand quilting. That means you take a needle that you sew by hand. You put this through the eye, and you do what you do, and you tie it up, and you hand quilt. If you put this on this machine or any of the new machines with drop-in bobbins, you'll wreck them. They'll jam. You'll wish they just looped, made a little uneven stitch, but oh no, they will flip that bobbin case up off of its magnet, and it'll wreck your machine. Absolutely wreck it. Still talking about thread. That doesn't have a label on it, but that's upholstery thread. I can tell. That's a 69 nylon upholstery thread, and nice and strong, but you can't use it on a household machine. That's for an industrial upholstery machine like a Consew, I don't know, Consew 230, LU 563, Juki, maybe 206 RB is what I meant to say, not a 230. That's a high-speed garment machine. But anyhow, here's a lot of different kinds. This end, what kind of thread do you have? And they'll say, it's a ART44001. Well, it certainly is, but what kind is it? Quilting thread. It will not work on your sewing machine. Some it will, the old black side load 1591s, and occasionally a Kenmore, occasionally this, occasionally that, but it will tear your machine up. Now you talk about getting an old thread that maybe has been kept climate controlled. You know, if it's got an old foam deal like this, or even a wood one, you know it's really old, but that's going to be good thread. That's going to not cause a problem. Really strong, hard to break. That's good thread. But what makes it different from the others? Well, it's not heavy. It's not oversized. You can usually twist it, and it'll say twisted together like that. That's not the perfect test, but it quite often will let you know. But if you look on the end and you see, let's see, what do you want to make sure you see? All-purpose. Because they'll say it's doing this, it's doing that. Find some all-purpose. Use it, and if the trouble goes away, you know it was a thread issue. You absolutely know it was a thread issue. Now, it can be something like this that's sitting up there on top, and I've seen these on featherweights like that, and it's bouncing around, pulling, jerking, breaking the thread. This is for a serger. Or you can put it in a flat stand that goes up and over, like I have here on my workbench, and you can use this as a great thread. That's what I wind these bobbins with when I stitch out machines. I wind them, put them on there, and just, put them on the bobbin that goes with that machine, and I use it to stitch it out. A good Sherlock or any kind of a good serger thread. It will not cause a problem. It's good stuff. Now, something like this even, you get the wrong kind, and people have the horizontal, and they don't put the spool stopping in properly, so it flops around. Whenever you raise your pressure foot up and you pull on the thread, you should feel it pulling very smoothly. There shouldn't be a jerk, or a real tight and real loose. Press your foot up to test that. You always have to pull it. If this is a thing sitting up here like this, it'll go easy, hard, and then your stitches will be good, bad, good, bad, good, bad. Thread, it's critical. Use the right stuff. Make sure it's not broken. If the end of your spool is broken like that, the thread's going to hang on it. It'll cause your needle to bend, and it'll break the thread. Let's see, you want some good thread. Oh, this is some good thread. It's old thread, but it's good thread. There's all kinds of thread out there that will work, but it's not going to say hand this or buttons and crafts that. Now, as far as threading goes, we know we always go through the threading procedure. Every time you thread any machine that was ever made, step one is raise the presser foot. I have a whole video on that. Raise the presser foot. The video is titled, How to Thread Every Sewing Machine Ever Made. Step one, raise the presser foot. You go through the threading procedure, follow your guides, get it between the discs, go through here, and then once you've got it up to the take-up lever, you lower it, you pull, and you'll feel resistance. And I always say it's like someone has a hold of it and won't let go. They have a hold of the thread and they won't let go. That's the only way you know you have it threaded right. And then when you go down to your needle, make sure you hit all your thread guides. It's critical that your machine is threaded properly. My customers tell me, I say, is your machine threaded correctly? I think so. That's a no. That means, nope, not really. Or they'll say, I threaded it about 5 or 6 different times. I think one of those should have worked. Not a good answer. You should know how to thread your machine like you know your own name. If somebody asks you your name, you can't say, I think it's this, or it's probably that. You know your name. How to tie your shoe. You know how to tie your shoe. You've tied it so many times. You don't stop to think, or it's wrong, or maybe try it again. No, you have to know how to thread your machine like you know how to tie your shoe. It sounds ridiculous, but it's got to be that absolute certain. It can't be close. It can't be near. It can't be, I think. It's got to be absolutely positively, or you'll have a loop, you'll have a jam, you'll have a mess. My phone will ring, and we'll get it fixed eventually. But you don't need to frustrate yourself and go through all that if you get it right. Now, number 3. We did thread, we did threading. Number 3 is needle. Oh my gosh, how important is the needle? Well, Mr. Singer invented the sewing machine needle. He didn't invent the sewing machine. Mr. Singer invented the needle. Elias Howe invented the sewing machine here in the United States. But they couldn't make it sew worth a flip, so Mr. Singer came along and devised the needle that had a design that would actually work. And the design of the needle is critical. People say, will a Kenmore needle work in a Singer? Will a Singer work in a Bernina? Will a Bernina work in a Kenmore? Every needle on the planet, with no exceptions, is a Singer needle. Mr. Singer licensed all the different manufacturers around the world to make his needle. Every manufacturer of every sewing machine that was ever made left the factory with his needle in it. That's how he became a billionaire back when there's no such thing as billionaires. Back in the day, back when he lived over on Merritt Island, which was named after him, that's his middle name, on Merritt Island. His next door neighbor on one side was a guy named Henry Ford, who seemed to do okay. And the other on the other side was a guy named Thomas Alva Edison. He did okay too. He was running with those kind of folks. He owned South Padre Island in its entirety. He was a high roller. He invented the sewing machine needle. That's where he made his money. He got all that money and he started buying up all the different manufacturers, the different patents. He got his own machine, got everything cool. He wasn't a dummy and he did a good job of it. But the needle was critical because the machines would not sew without his needle. So he devised a needle that had, here's one that says Schmetz. Now it's a Singer needle made by the Schmetz folks. Excellent needle, made to a standard. You know, you can go online and watch videos about processing needles and how they're made. Pretty fascinating. But you can see, let's get a little larger look here. A needle has a flat side on top of it. It's a household machine. And you can see it has an eye. It has a scarf, which is the notch. Let's go back to that. Notch right above the eye. There's a notch there where the thread comes, or the needle comes in right there and catches the thread. Comes in right there where my nail is. The point of the hook comes in and catches it right there. At the eye of the needle, at the eye of the needle, you see it's got a lobe. See how it fattens out there at the eye? That spreads the fibers apart so the hook can come in and catch the tiny little loop. This is a specialized needle. This is the Schmetz Stretch, which is the same as the Singer 2045. I get them in size 14. I buy them by the 1,000. I always have at least 2,000 to 5,000 on hand if I can get them on sale and get a big stack of them. It'd be like having a gas station with no gas, being a repair guy with no needles. Without a correct needle, you're sunk. You're done. Nothing's going to work. So I get either these Schmetz stretch needles. That's all I put in the machines. I don't put anything else in them for day-to-day sewing. Unless you're sewing on leather, then you want to get a leather needle because it has a pierce point like an arrow, and it cuts the grain. It doesn't separate the fibers. So when you put the needle in, it's got to be the correct needle. It's got to be a quality needle. It's got to have polished eyes. It's got to be chrome plated. You got to put it in correctly. The front load machine, the flat side goes to the back. The top load, the flat side goes to the back. The side load, the flat side goes almost always to the right, except for machines like this, where it goes to the left and you thread it inside out. So it's a little bit backwards. But if you're sewing on a knit fabric, I don't care if it's a high thread count, maybe it's like Egyptian cotton, it's a high thread count. People say they're taking sheets and they're making curtains and they're skipping stitches. Because of the high thread count, you have to get this type of a needle, a 2045 and a Singer, or get the Schmetz Stretch in a 14. I get on a 14. If you want smaller, that's fine. Just makes it harder. The thread for me, I like the size 14, so you can put that thread through it. So get the 2045. Sometimes it'll look like this. See, 2045. The 2020 is a different design. 2045. I get them, 100 in a pack. 2045, 9014. So however the packaging looks, get one of those two needles. Skipping stitches, making bad stitches. There's a million things that'll make a bad stitch. These are the big three that'll cause the problem. The big three is going to be either the thread, the threading, or the needle. Get the right thread, make sure it's threaded properly, and get the correct needle, insert it properly, make sure it's not dull, bent. If you say dull and bent at the same time, it goes out dull. Dull or bent, and sometimes these have been known to be shipped, stacked, and bent in shipment. You'll take out a machine needle out of a pack, if it's like this in a blister pack, and they stack them in there real tight with a lot of weight on top of them. They'll come out of the package bent, so you always have to test them. You always have to take a needle to see if it's bent, and you'll take the flat side like right there. Let's get it up here so you can see the flat side. And you lay that down, preferably on your needle plate, because your needle plate's machined very flat. And you put the flat side down there and make sure it doesn't curve up from the end. Make sure it lays flat. Always check the end of the needle. Make sure there's not a blunt place or a burr. A lady the other day had one brand new out of the pack, and the end of it was actually broken off. It didn't come all the way up to the point. It was a defective needle. I have a Singer needle that's hanging up here on the bench. I don't know if I can find it in time to show it to you. But the flat side is on the back, and the eye is going from the left to right. It's actually, it's made improperly. It's misformed. So that happens too. You suspect those three before you do anything else. Before you turn any knobs, before you do anything, take anything apart, keep your screwdriver away from your machine, but check the big three before you go any further. It's simple. Thread, threading, or needle. It's the easiest way to fix your machine. Don't swing for the fences. Try to move the runner down the baseline. If you're a baseball fan, you know what I'm talking about. Lay down the sacrifice bunt. Do a little pop-up. Move the runner. Don't go for the grand slam. Everybody wants to think it's some huge malfunction. It hardly ever is. Thread, threading, needle. The big three.